According to one story, all hell broke loose after a woman in Galveston, Texas, decided to purchase a voodoo doll from New Orleans on eBay. Once she removed the little doll from its silver casing, she released the evil into her home. She began hearing strange tapping noises and having vivid nightmares, and would find the doll in strange places. But then the activity became physical. The woman woke up with mysterious scratches and gashes all over her body. Each of her attempts to destroy the doll or get rid of it only led to it finding its way back to her. She decided to send the doll back to the person she had bought it from, but the package was returned to her. The box read "Resident Deceased." While he isn't available on eBay anymore, the doll Samson is a tiny terror who has been described as jealous and possessive by a previous owner. His last owner believed Samson cursed her with a mysterious affliction which caused breathlessness, neck tension, sore patches of skin, and a burst eye vessel. The doll supposedly made messes, broke other dolls, and tormented a cat. Previous owners of Samson have reported heavy poltergeist activity in their home, lights flickering, things thrown around the house, and terrifying activity in their baby's nursery. They found Samson in the crib with their baby as the mobile spun wildly, water dripped from the ceiling, and the rocking horse seemed to have a mind of its own. Samson has undergone sessions with a medium, and the entity attached to the doll claimed to be a little boy who was kidnapped and tortured before being brutally slain over 200 years ago. Paranormal investigator Jane Harris was given an old man puppet after its owner became too fearful to keep it in his home anymore. The man said the puppet came to life and tried to strangle him through an eerie, disembodied shadow while he tried to sleep. Harris took the puppet, locked it in a glass box, and kept it under video surveillance for 3 months to see what kind of paranormal evidence she could capture. The resulting footage apparently shows the puppet slowly moving of its own accord. Annabelle might be the most famous cursed doll of all time. She was first brought to public attention by demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, and Hollywood latched onto her terrifying tale in The Conjuring. The real Annabelle is an old Raggedy Ann doll, but looks can be deceiving. This doll is supposedly possessed by a demon. It was brought into the home where 2 young women, after one of them, a nurse, received it as a birthday gift. Her mother had gotten it for her from a thrift store. Soon after the doll was in their home, strange things started happening. The doll would appear in weird locations and change little things, like crossing and uncrossing its cloth legs. Not only could Annabelle move around on her own, but she could apparently write as well. The roommates would find scraps of paper with "Help Me" scribbled on them. Finally, they saw the doll move its arms and called a psychic for advice, who told them the doll was connected to the harmless ghost of a little girl whose name was Annabelle. The women felt bad for the spirit and invited it to stay with them. That's when its true nature was revealed and it began to act violently. One night, the doll attacked the fiancé of one of the women who had been sleeping on the couch, leaving scratch marks on his chest. Once the Warrens were brought in to investigate, they determined that the doll was in fact under the sway of a demon and had a priest perform an exorcism. The Warrens ended up locking Annabelle up behind glass in their occult museum. For generations, Joliet has been passed down to the girls of the same family, and so has the curse that's attached to her. The doll is said to have the souls of boys from their family trapped inside of her. Each woman in the family line has had a son and a daughter, though the boys have always mysteriously passed at just 3 days old. The doll is then gifted to the surviving daughter, who may hear the laughter and crying of the deceased infants coming from the doll at night. According to Joliet's current owner, Hannah, the curse on the doll came from a bitter friend of her great-grandmother's, who offered the doll as a cruel pregnancy gift. Anna's great-grandmother gave birth to a healthy son who passed in infancy from a sudden illness. It's been claiming the male heirs of the family ever since. As the story goes, Robert the doll was gifted to a boy named Robert Eugene Otto by his grandfather in the early 1900s. The boy, known as Gene, loved the doll, and the two became inseparable. Gene carried Robert around with him everywhere he went and spoke to him as if he were real. But then strange mishaps began happening, and all Gene would say was Robert did it. In adulthood, Gene kept Robert with him, talking to him constantly and giving him a seat at the dining room table. After Gene got married, he kept Robert in the turret room of his house. Neighborhood children said they saw Robert moving around in the window from the street below. Since 1994, long after Gene and his wife passed, Robert has lived in the Fort East Martello Museum. But his malevolent power seems to linger. Visitors who have mocked the doll or taken pictures without asking him first have ended up with a string of bad luck until they apologize. People even send letters and bribes, candy and money, to try to get the doll back on their side. Even looking at Peggy can supposedly harm you. People who have viewed her or just seen her picture often report symptoms including dizziness, chest pains, headaches, horrible luck, nightmares, and full-on mania. One woman even claimed Peggy gave her a heart attack. Paranormal investigator Jane Harris estimated that about 80% of those who see Peggy are affected in some way. Now, Peggy sits in the Haunted Museum of Las Vegas, owned by paranormal investigator Zach Bagans. According to Dread Central, Bagans said, "I was very skeptical of this claim until the doll caused very terrifying activity during our filming, including manifestations of flies, camera problems, negative mental effects on me, poltergeist activity." Peggy the doll will be displayed at the Haunted Museum, but releases will have to be signed should visitors want to see her. One otherwise ordinary day in Singapore, a creepy doll appeared on the side of the road. Right away, everyone who spotted it could feel there was something terribly wrong with it. From her shabby lace dress to her blindfolded face, the doll just felt off. The fabric that obscures her eyes features Arabic writing that translates to Bismillah, or in the name of Allah. Some people believe that the doll is cursed and that the only thing keeping the evil contained is the blindfold. Anyone who unties that cloth will unleash the curse and be followed home by the doll. As of 2015, the doll went missing, but it's believed she'll return to her tree once she is finished with her current subject. In 2013, a young girl was gifted an Elsa doll for Christmas, and 6 years later, the family struggles to let it go. According to Emily Madonia, the girl's mother, the doll would recite lines from Frozen when a button on its chest was pressed, but after 2 years, it started doing it alternating between Spanish and English. There wasn't a button that changed these, it was just random. Eventually, it began only speaking in Spanish. The doll is battery operated, and though the family claims they haven't once changed the batteries, it continues to respond when its button is pressed, and apparently it occasionally speaks and sings even when it is switched off. The family tried to get rid of the doll in December 2019 by throwing it away, but it returned weeks later, hiding in their living room. They attempted to throw it away once again, and tightly wrapped it in its own garbage bag and put the garbage bag inside another garbage bag filled with other garbage and put it in the bottom of their garbage can underneath a bunch of other bags of garbage and wheeled it to the curb, and it was collected on garbage day, according to a Facebook post by Madonia. The family went out of town, and when they returned, they discovered the doll in their backyard. Madonia says, "Most logical thinkers believe it's a prank, but I don't understand how or when it was done. Not to mention they know it can't be another doll because the original has marker on it from their daughter coloring on it. In a final attempt to rid themselves of the doll, the family mailed her to a family friend named Chris Hogan, who wrote on Facebook, "She made it to Minnesota and is taped to the brush guard of my Jeep. If anything weird happens, I'm welding her into a steel pipe and sinking it in Lake of the Woods." Greg Mishka put Harold up for auction on eBay in 2003 and offered full disclosure that the doll was haunted. Despite all this, someone bought Harold for $700, but they didn't fulfill their payment. The doll went back on the market and ended up with a friend of Greg's named Kathy, who kept the doll for about a year. Kathy resold the doll on eBay, writing that the doll was not haunted, it was cursed. 2 people she knew passed tragically, and other strange things happened whenever the doll was in her house. Harold was accused of being responsible for a woman's tumble to his death down a flight of stairs after interacting with him. Another man was diagnosed with cancer and later passed after moving into the room where Kathy was storing the doll. Harold has made his rounds on the paranormal television show circuit and has been blamed for a slew of horrors over the years. The man who bought Harold from Kathy, a psychic medium named Anthony Quinna, even wrote a book about it. The real kicker is that Mishka, the original owner, later admitted his claims were a hoax to make money. The tragedies surrounding Harold, however, tell a different story.